Breadwinner is sort of like two stories running side by side. We have the real world, as Nora called it, and story world. Real world is this cold, hard, spare existence for Parwana, and things quickly take a turn for the tragic with her family in the film. So we wanted to address that as a way to support her loss and her determination to make things right, but in a kind of restrained way, because it's a restrained world. And then the other side of it, story world, which is this place she obviously escapes into as a release from this other world, was something that was very dynamic and colorful. We were able to use a different approach musically to highlight that, much bolder, that kind of thing. And those two roads were sort of our way into the film. I play a collection of world guitars. I have stuff from all over the place. A lot of Middle Eastern instruments as well. You know, anything that goes like this, I can make some kind of a noise on it. So that was one of the things we said, well, let's make those things specifically for story world. And then the other real difference was that because it was this magical story place, we could play moment by moment, like a more animated approach. You know, there's people jumping and flipping and stuff spinning around, and we could follow that with the music, which we were definitely not doing in real world, which we were scoring almost like live action.
From Nora's perspective, there was always big delineation between the real world and the story world. And in real world, when we're in Kabul in Afghanistan, she really wanted the markets to be especially noisy and vibrant and active, like constantly active, right? And so that's kind of my hope, is that's what the sound is bringing to it, is when we're in real world, it's a little oppressive, it's a little like overwhelming in some senses for Parwana, and then in story world, it's a little bit more like a playground for her. You know, it's a little bit more fun, a little bit more fantastical, I guess. There's two sides to those story world sequences. The Elephant King is certainly part of it, and that's where the climax goes to, is with him. But I think there's some other elements too, just in Suleiman's journey to the Elephant King, that I think are a little different and kind of touch a little bit more on the fun and playful side of the film, which I've found is actually a really great tool that she's used, because obviously it's a very heavy subject matter. And I found the story world sequences a really great way to kind of bring some levity to the story. And so there's some really fun little sequences, like kind of comedic things. There's some things with these old ladies milking goats, and then these bony skeletons, and this round man with magical emeralds. And so those, I think, are a really integral part of the story world sequences as well, that I've tried to work a lot, like pretty hard on, in terms of, you know, not using cartoon sounds, but trying to bring some levity to it as well. Sound does a really good job at making things sound evil and dark, and it's not too hard to get to that spot. But bringing playful, fun, joyful sounds is a little bit trickier, I find, to do. So it's a good challenge in terms of those sequences.
One of the things that's really important to us in any kind of storytelling, and certainly in this one, is to kind of give a certain respect to the culture that the story is springing from. And so that means for us, musically, it was very important to include Afghan musicians, Afghan instruments, to educate ourselves in that world and understand the culture as best we could and what part music plays within that. We've both been involved in films that, you know, are derived from very successful and perfect novels. You know, Life of Pi, for instance, is another example. And it's always interesting to compare the changes and the slightly different effect that the book has and the film has. I think the Breadwinner, there are some distinct changes which, you know, Nora talked to us about and why she made those choices. So it's kind of an interesting thing for people to do, to compare the differences in the novel and in the feature film and the effect that they have. I personally loved what Nora's done and where this ended up.
I remember when we spotted the film with Nora, at the end of the film, she said, "This is about hope." Spoiler alert, the reunion at the end, Parwana, her father, and she said, "I want this whole reel infused with uncertainty while we get to this moment, not knowing if we'll get there, and then hope and beauty heading out." And I think we scored it that way, and I think that's what we'd like to leave the audience with at the end.